Okay, so the YouTube video camera is recording, so I'll be able to put that up. And we will just do the best we can and take into account the technical debacle that is Greyhound Arena. Okay, Chris, you're up. Can you hear us okay? I'm going to give Chris the microphone.
All right.
Okay. And I think if you guys can let Jesse know when you're changing the slide over so he can click to the next slide. And let's just see what we can manage.
You on the PowerPoint?
No, I sent it to him. He's got it.
Well, I'll just make sure you can pull it up.
Sorry.
Yeah, I got it. Go for it. Go.
All right, so do I just hit click to
Yeah.
go forward? Okay. All right, well, my name is Chris Browning, and I'm going to be talking about launch angle in baseball. All right, purpose statement, or the purpose of the study was to investigate whether changing from a downward to an upward launch angle increases the number of home runs in D2 college baseball players, or just baseball players. All right, the independent dependent variable, the independent variable is launch angle. The dependent variable is number of home runs. So obviously launch angle is what is independent in the number of home runs, because whatever the launch angle is maybe could be the reason why or why not hit a home run or having it. What is launch angle? Launch angle is like the angle of the swing towards the baseball. So it depends, like there's many different types of launch angles. There's typically, you can say more than 3. It's an upward, flat, and down. And really within those things is like launch angles. You can have like a real steep one coming way up, have just kind of a less steep one, even less than that. Then you can have a real flat one, and then you have downward, and it just keeps going on and on. So, brought a little prop.
Move over, just move to your right just a little bit.
Okay.
There we go, so that you're in the camera.
I didn't. But yeah, I brought a little prop just to, because I like demonstrating stuff with hands. All right. Kind of just the background of why I was doing this. I don't want to get too in front of that. But just the background of why I was doing this is like launch angles have always been taught. Like it's just what type of launch angle. Like even if you think about it, that type of swing you have, that's a launch angle, regardless of you say you're trying to teach up or down. And that's also debate. You know, like many people like debate on which one could be right or wrong. Sometimes it really might not be either or. Every coach wants to find a way to teach his batter to have like perfect swing you can, because you want them to have the best results possible. Because if your team's hitting well, you're just going to score runs, and obviously this individual level, if you're hitting good, you feel good about yourself. So typically there's 2 ways that like is disputed. Like I said, you have flat. Usually, like you're talking about more if you're up or down. Sorry, I haven't told you next slide. I'm on first initial findings. Are you on that then?
Yep, got you.
Okay, my bad. All right. First initial findings I have was the optimal baseball swing perimeters for maximum range of trajectories. That was kind of a tough thing to really read, but if you really come down to it, it had mainly 3 big key things you can talk about: angle, flight, and spin. Obviously, angle, like we're talking about right now, it's like it's going over the angle of the ball, well, the angle of the bat off the ball. So it's mainly talking about how you can hit it at what angle to get the right flight and the right spin. Flight depends, like the way you hit it, it depends on how much force that the air might be putting on it. And that's where spin can come in. Because if you hit it at a right launch angle and you get that backspin, when it's cutting through like this, it's going to cut through the air better than, say, it cuts through like over the top, and it's going to die down. But this cuts through the air, rises, and keeps going up. That's why, like the argument could be, you want to have upward launch angles, where you can get that spin, and you can travel further, go over the fence, or at least line drive, at least a double or something. Next slide. Another finding was a decision-making process. Because really, depending on what type of pitch or pitcher you're facing, you have very little time to decide on what pitch you want to hit and what you want to do with it. Because launch angle also varies on like pitch type and height of pitch. Because obviously, if there's a ball right at my chest right here, I can't really do much of a high upward swing. I'm just going to hit it straight up in the air, and it's going to be an out. Like, you obviously might want more of a flat one to hit it with backspin and carry it off like that. And also pitch type, like things. Like different pitch types can be different spots. Fastball, you don't want to hit it up here. Say that was a curveball more times. Let's say basic ones, 12 to 6, 12 to 6, go straight down. If it's right here and it's going down this way, well, yes, you can have a higher up, like launching. You can get down here, get more under it, get that backspin, and really get some lift to it. And that's why there's different types of pitches. Like really, it's like you have like so many pitches. 4-seam, like why it's called 4 seams. Even though it's one big seam, it's 4 seams, 1, 2, 3, 4 seams. That's what you see. And then you got 2 seams, you hold these 2 seams. That's why it's called 2 seam. And then you got breakball, change up, there's all these other curves. But anyway, like that thing is the pitch type and location of the pitch can depend if you want to hit more upward or you want to hit more flat. And really you don't want to hit this one, but this one you might want to come more down. But really if it's down here, then you want to get a little bit under it, get that backspin and lift it. Next slide. Other key factors in swing, like what I was just kind of talking about, was backspin. Can an upward launch angle create backspin? Yes, it can. Like the reason I say yes, it can is because what I said. Like even if you might be thinking upward, you might more think you're pushing it. You're not pushing it. Because if you hit it right, coming up right here, you hit more of the lower middle half, and then you can really pull on it with the bat. Pull on it like that, and it's going to be launching and going backspin. Now let's say you hit the top of it, which is not what you want to do, then yes, you're going to get your top spin. If you hit it more square on, you might get more nose spin or knuckleball. But the thing is, if you hit it right, and you do it right at the right angle, you can come up and create that backspin. Next slide. Okay, why this topic? Like, basically I chose this topic because I am a graduate assistant baseball coach for obviously our baseball team. So that's why I chose it. Like I've been around baseball my whole life and hope to keep staying around it as long as I'm fortunate enough to do that. Hitting is one of the funnest parts of baseball. That's what I did. I was more of a hitter. If you ask a pitcher, he'd probably say pitching because that's what he does is pitches. He pitches, so obviously he ain't hitting. But that's one of the funnest parts of baseball. Like most guys love hitting. Hitting approaches is always changing. Like just what I'm saying. It's like I remember reading I guess my dad remember reading a book when I was a real little kid. It had a picture of a guy coming downward through the ball like that. And that was like probably like I guess around 20 years ago or something now. But that's just the thing. It's like that was probably more how his top was coming down through it. And now you see a lot of guys who watch pro hitters, like a guy named Josh Donaldson. He's down, uppercuts that thing. And he launches it and hits it far away. And there's a lot of people talking about it, and that's why they're getting into it. This information, like stuff like this, could be beneficial to help me learn how to coach. It could be, even though it's paper I can be writing, it can help me like learn something, maybe help me in my own like coaching career. Next slide. So to really conclude on this is like, there's kind of just a limited knowledge as far as like scholarly sources really. There are sources out there, but there isn't a whole lot of information out there. It's really kind of hard because it isn't quite looked into yet. Because it's not, I can't say it's completely new, but it's getting to more of a, talking about maybe newer style. This is definitely a topic I want to learn more about, like I said, it benefit me into my career and what I'll do. And I'm also looking forward to see how an upward launch angle like continues to develop, because this could be something that you see a lot of people doing in the future, and like more hitting, more say 5, 10 years from now, everybody's like completely against it, and they're saying hit through like this or flat or just anything different. Things are always changing. You always want to find a way to get yourself better. You also, as a coach, you don't want to find a coach that says I know it all. Like you do it this way or you do it that way. You want to always be learning. That's something I'm trying to learn. Because personally, when I was hitting, I was more of a flat guy. But that was the thing. Like I was more taught to go down through it. When I got older, I felt like this was a little better, so I kind of got more flat, more upward. Was how I did it. But I never got to that because I was thinking maybe I'll pop up too much. But more that I've watched it, researched it, I think it is a little bit better to have more of a little bit upward swing just because the guy throwing off the mount's coming downward. It makes sense to hit a little bit up because you'll be matching his plane, you'll be driving there. These are my references, basically like the 3 big ones that we just went over that I got out of there, gave you the real key points that I got out of there. And thank you, should have a thank you, but I guess it doesn't. Thank you, and any questions?
So is hitting the upward angle, trying to hit on the lower half of the baseball, is there research on if that results in also more of a foul ball percentage too? Because if you're hitting one like this, then it tips backwards, depending on.
Oh, you're talking about more of a foul back one?
Yeah, foul back.
You'll get more near misses, but that's the thing I've learned when I was playing. If you have one that fell straight back, that means you just missed it and you're right on top of it, and you obviously want to see more of that. So yes, the percentages will go more up.
Personally, I think I agree with you on you should have a little bit of a lift with your swing. Well, what type of left angle do you think leads to the most success for a batter?
The thing is, it does depend on the batter and pitch. I think the best one will be more of maybe a little less than a 45-degree angle, depending on the pitch. Because, like I said, if it's up here, obviously you don't want much more. If it's down here, you want more of a 45. If it's more of a real proper pitch that's kind of more down at your knees right here, like if it's right here, then yes, you want to get more right here, and that's probably I'm not great at math by no means, but around 45, they'll probably lift it better.
So is that something that you're teaching the baseball team, is the upward long pitching angle?
Depending on the guy, we have some guys who are chopping through it, and I have had him try to get him a little bit more lift on it. But then we got this guy who's like, he's not, I don't even know if you count as a launch angle, we're just doing this, it feels like, and that, he's got to come more downward. But really, if he corrects that to this, he's more getting more of an upward swing. So probably, yes, I think I'm teaching in a way, if I'm not telling them to launch it. Because if I tell them that, since it's kind of new and popular, they're going to probably think of Josh Thomas and being okay. No.
So is the trend with upward hitters and, potential for it being home runs, why I think pitchers maybe in full count or 2-strike situations go high and away or high with fastballs, so that way it doesn't give them that angle to get it up.
Yes, and also it's hard to hit that. It's depending on what speed it is, but I think there's a reason when they go more high and in, because that ain't a pitch you want to try to hit. And say like pros are throwing 95 miles an hour. Coming that fast and near your head, you don't enjoy that. And if it's 3-2 and you get thrown off and don't recognize the ball, that's why it's kind of the decision-making process, there. But the decision-making process, really, you have to see it, make a decision to either go for it or not. But yes, that is probably why they do that. And sometimes they do that just to change up your eyeball. Sometimes they throw it real low in the dirt just because they want to see if you think, oh, I can get to that and dive like at 12-6.
And they'll block pitches and then go away or high and away if they block down.
Lost his
You got any questions? Yes.
I'm kind of trying to put together in regard to like the launch angle in respect to the backspin. Like, does the backspin really have that? Does it really factor in regard to whether or not you're able to accomplish that?
Yes, backspin's huge. Yes, backspin's huge because if you hit backspin, it's going to have a more. If you hit it right and hit it with enough force, it's going to rise. Backspin helps the ball rise. So if you hit it right and it's rising, then it has more of a chance to get in the air and go over the fence. So yes, backspin is huge.
Gotcha. Appreciate that.
Okay. Adam, I think you're next. Which one is? Chris, is your?
Oh, thank you. I was going to forget about that.
Email it to, if you put it in there. your presentation PowerPoint, Adam?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah. And then
You want me to go?
yeah.
Okay, so just a little bit about myself. My name is Adam Sanchez. I was born and raised in Alamogordo, Mexico. Graduated from Alamogordo High in 2012. Got my bachelor's in education from NMSU in 2016. Currently teaching elementary PE in Dexter, New Mexico, pursuing a master's in sports administration. My topic is effects of physical education on academic achievement. Where are you supposed to click?
I think if you just
Anywhere,
click the,
just click.
yeah, there you go.
My purpose statement. The purpose of the study is to investigate the relationship between physical activity and academic performance in elementary school students. Okay, my variables, my independent variable is physical activity. My dependent variable is academic performance. Okay, boys versus girls. Okay, so there was really no dramatic differences in boys versus girls. Really no dramatic differences in the first semester versus the second semester in physical education. Activity in school and activity outside of school. PE enhances students to be physically active outside of school, which directly targets academic learning and academic achievement. Mostly it just promotes work ethic, their motivation, and their success. Those are some of my key papers. One crucial paper that caught my attention was the relationship between physical activity, self-esteem, and academic achievement in 12-year-old children. I thought this was a really interesting paper because this is where a lot of the elementary students are transitioning from elementary school to middle school. They're becoming more independent, they have more responsibility for themselves. Also, this paper discussed...
Adam, I'm so sorry, your mic's cutting in and out. So sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, you're good.
Try turning it off and turning it back on. It's on the top. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. It talked about standardized testing and how that plays a big part of public school today. There was a lot of improvements shown in math and reading with an increase in physical activity within school. Also socioeconomic status and parent involvement played a huge role in the physical activity of the children. Other key papers that are shown up here were touched on a variety of topics, including the impact that PE teachers have on elementary students and their performance in the classrooms. I honestly feel that a lot of the students develop the personality of their own teachers, their own PE teachers. Well, also another thing I thought was interesting was the physical test versus the cognitive thinking test. And all the information that were examined, or that I examined, supported positive reinforcements between the two variables. Why this topic? I'm a PE teacher. Teaching children, I'm trying to teach children how to be physically active for a lifetime. All for having an impact on their academic achievement. If that has any increase on that, I'm all for it. Also, these are two things that are really close to my heart: physical activity and academics. I feel like we've been going to school for a really long time. Also, the topic is debatable. Classroom teachers see an increase in their students' academic achievement due to PE, physical activity, and sports. I'd really like to find out more information on what classroom teachers truly believe about their students and how it affects their academic achievement. Interesting statistics. I thought it was really amazing to learn about the different tests that are available to measure the relationship between the two variables. Future research is definitely necessary. PE enhances students to be physically active outside of school, which directly targets academic learning and academic achievement. Like I said earlier, it mainly affects their work ethic, motivation, and success. In conclusion, I love my job, I love what I do, I love kids. I feel that it's amazing to be a PE teacher because it provides me with an opportunity to be a part of and have a significant impact on so many lives. And what I'm doing as a PE teacher can in any way enhance academic learning and academic achievement for my students. I feel that I have attained my goal of being a productive member of society. Overall, I think the overall goal of children should not be to win a game or get a good grade, but to be able to balance multiple tasks and challenges that life throws at us. Any questions?
Why do you think the students grow the same personality as a teacher?
Just because they're around them so much.
They're around them.
Have you seen them like maybe kind of act like you sometimes?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you think it's important that, especially with, I mean, as society continues to go, that, PE is actually getting removed from school, it to be, important to teach the younger kids and increase the importance and demonstrate or, highlight the importance to superintendents or to school districts, why it's important to keep, especially elementary school kids in PE versus, say high school kids?
Right, yeah, I do think it's very important to keep PE around just because of all of the socialization that takes place, it helps them grow as people, not just in the classroom, but as individuals.
Ask Jesse if he has a question.
Jesse, you have a question?
Yeah, I have. So you say you're a teacher here in New Mexico?
Yes, and next year in New Mexico.
Awesome. I was actually teaching here in California for quite some time. That's teaching physical education as well. And I'm intrigued to see whether or not in the studies that you're researching that you observed any correlation between physical activity and academic success. If so, what was the amount of physical activity that was being implemented throughout the school day, and did it differ throughout age range, from kinder on to secondary, middle school and high school on?
Yeah, so the traditional, because I'm at the elementary level, K through 5, so they usually get 30 minutes twice a week. So, that really hasn't changed, but could definitely see how the time that they're engaged in physical activity impacts their performance in the classroom.
Definitely, yeah.
Any other questions? Well, okay, thank you very much. And thanks for making the effort to drive over and be here in person. That's lovely. See, Jesse, you should have driven here from California. What are you doing out there by the beach? He ran away. I'm not listening to that silly woman anymore. Hold on.
Those papers. Good. I don't know if there's another one. Hold on. Because I need one.
And then when your computer dies or it gets stolen,
Do not say that.
external hard drive, 5 500, get like 500 gigs for $60 or something. Yeah. Yeah, I'll tell you, because not last year, the year before, I do, yeah, I put everything on the thumb drive and then I forget to back it up. And I lost my thumb drive and I hadn't backed it up all semester and it had everything on it. Never again. Oh my God. Jesse, while we're waiting for
Yeah.
Erica to pull hers up, can you email me your?
I just sent you mine actually.
Okay, all right, great, thank you.
Yep.
Sorry. I don't know what you want me to do with that.
Just clip it, if you undo this a little bit and just clip it out here, that would be great. Check this is.
Oh.
Click the right hand one and it'll go back for you. Should do.
So I guess I'm just doing that. Okay. Hello, my name is Erica Burke. I'll say a little bit more myself as well. I'm from Sacramento, California. I went and I played junior college at home at Sacramento City College, and I came here and played 3 years of softball with Eastern softball as well. I'm now the grad assistant. I didn't even ask, can you hear me, Jesse?
Yeah, can you hear you loud and
Okay.
clear?
Okay.
I'm just curious if Dr. Watson, your PowerPoint.
Oh, sorry, hold on. Did you download it to
I downloaded it just to open it.
to the desktop?
I just opened it. That's what I said. I don't know what you want me to do.
Hold on, sorry, Jesse. Desktop. Okay, it's on its way.
Got it.
Okay, sorry.
Let me know when you're good.
Too much going on for my little pea brain.
Is that me that does that?
I don't know why it's doing that.
Okay. Where was I? Oh, I'm a grad assistant here with the softball team. This is going to be my second year, so I'll be done in May with grad assisting. The presentation that I am talking about today is post-injury psychological effects on female athletes. My purpose statement is, the purpose of this study is to examine the psychological effects injuries have on female athletes. My variables are, independent variable is the female athlete injuries themselves, and then the dependent variable is a psychological effect. So whatever the injury does to their mental state and all of that good bad stuff, I guess you would say. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of discuss each article that I thought was interesting for me. The first one that brought to my attention was the post-concussion symptoms of depression and anxiety in Division I collegiate athletes. The purpose statement is the study examined the effect of baseline psychological symptoms on post-concussion depression and anxiety among a sample of concussed Division I collegiate athletes. There were 71 participants, there was 53 males and 18 females. So it's always kind of male dominance in research studies, kind of like that. They were both competing in 2 Big Ten conferences, and they were averaged in like 9 sports. The procedure that went on in this study, there was consent forms, baseline data that was collected. The symptoms of depression and anxiety were assessed through a cohort study. The injury reports were filed through a sports monitoring system. As the injuries were reported, the follow-up surveys were completed until they were returned to play. So every day or every week they were retested to make sure that they were okay until they were ready to play. The results held 3/4 of the 71 concussions. So mainly it was males that were taken in for the injury of concussion. More than half of those concussions were football players. So it's pretty intense for that. And also a statistic that caught my eye was 2/3 of the concussed athletes, they went to play back in less than a week. So it was a really big turnaround, which is not always healthy for athletes. The baseline symptoms of depression were 4.59 times more likely for concussed athletes to experience depression and 3.4 times of state anxiety post-concussion. And then the baseline trait anxiety athletes don't show signs of increased post-injury depression or state anxiety symptoms. The second article that I wanted to talk about was the injury in female competitive gymnasts, the psychological perspective. The purpose statement is the present investigation was carried out with the aim of determining the relationship between injury and psychological variables, so life stress, anxiety, the locus of control, and self-esteem in Australian elite and non-elite female gymnasts. There was 162 female gymnasts. They were between the ages of 9 and 18 years old. They were all picked from Australia, and they were put into 2 different groups, elite and non-elite, so probably more like comp teams rather than just recreational gymnasts. The questionnaire packages were provided. The life stress was assessed with according to a life events record, the sport competition anxiety test for children measured anxiety. The Cooper Smith self-esteem inventory measured self-esteem, and the children's Nowicki Strickland internal external control scale measured locus of control. The standard multiple regression analysis was used for the total number of injuries. The 4 independent variables combined accounted for 22% of the variability for the elite gymnasts, and for the non-elite gymnasts, only 13.6% accounted for the independent variables. And last but not least is the psychological impact of injury, effects of prior sport and exercise involvement. This purpose statement was the study of this was undertaken to provide a more rigorous test of the hypothesis that the psychological impact of injury will vary with involvement in sport and exercise. So there was 23 physiotherapists that were in charge of running this whole study. They went out and recruited 93 sport participating and non-participating individuals. There was 55 men and only 38 women. Their ages were 18 to 60 years old, and they were all involved in sport and exercise. This one as well had a questionnaire package. It was basic information. There was a Likert scale to rate the severity of the injury that was provided to the participants, including 6 visual analog scales, the PALMS subscales, and other visual analog scale to provide patients perceived recovery. The questionnaire was provided 3 times throughout the whole study, so it was before, in the middle, and then after. And every time that the participants were given a questionnaire, the physiotherapist took a survey, a questionnaire as well. All the emotional variables had significant decreases throughout the rehabilitation progression, and the number of hours of sport and exercise showed no significant difference between man or woman. So why I chose this topic, my senior year here at Eastern in the fall, in October, I was told that I had a hip labrum tear. And so I pretty much was told that if I keep playing, it's just going to get worse. And so I kind of put myself on the back side of things, and I wasn't going to play. And it kind of took me to a bad place in my head because it's, you know, something that I wanted to do, and I felt I was very confident in going into my senior year. But I don't know, God pushed me, and I ended up playing my senior year, so I'm really happy that I did. But it was a very rough time for me mentally, and Chris said that learning about these kinds of things I feel like is good for for the girls' futures, the athletes' futures. If we know how to handle things better, I feel like they will have a better experience in the long run. So I think that's important. There wasn't the articles that I found didn't have very strong injury relatable things. Nothing was like my arm hurt or the injury was my arms. The only thing was the concussions. That's the main article that I found that was that specific injury. There was no ACLs that really grabbed my attention in the mental state of things. So yeah, that is about it. Any questions? Jesse? You always have a long question.
Besides concussion, what were the other injuries or problems that you've seen that were arising throughout each article you've seen? Can you hear me now?
Say that again?
Go ahead, say it again, sorry.
Besides concussions, were there any other injuries that you were observing that kind of led into depression and anxiety simulations?
No, there wasn't. There was, like I said, the concussions was the only thing that really said that was the injury. There was no other.
Okay.
Really, yeah.
And then in terms of the scale in which they were measuring depression and anxiety, did they differ between men and women, or was it kind of the same for them?
No, there was no differences in between those scales. Everything was pretty much averaged out. That's why I don't understand why it's so much male dominance,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess, but
Thank you.
Have you seen injuries affect your players personally?
yes, absolutely. I don't know if this goes against HIPAA if I don't say their name, but there's one that is also going through hip
Yeah, if you don't say her name, that's okay.
hip recovery. She's trying to play by the spring, so it's been very hard staying. It's really hard staying there and watching everyone else play, and you're not. So I believe that it's very effective, but I think it's also effective to be around the atmosphere. You learn in different ways, so it kind of keeps your mind right.
Do you think there's more of, is when a sense of urgency or athletes are rushed back from concussions because in their mind they feel they're okay, but they're also feeling pressure from their coaches, so they feel okay quicker in their mind because their coach needs them back versus actually truly needing to be truly being healthy all the way psychologically and physically?
I think it's both. I think that athletes tend to say, oh, I want to play, I want to play, I want to play, so I'm not going to say anything, and then it becomes a situation down further. But I also do think that coaches do have influence on rushing them back onto the field, because especially if you're like a key player, they're going to want you back as soon as possible. So sometimes I feel like they influence you to move forward a little bit quickly.
How important do you think it is to take the proper concussion protocol?
Important. Absolutely.
Very important.
Absolutely. I mean, you only get, 6 is a lot. I think, is it 6 concussions that you can get, depending on how severe they are? That's a lot, but it's your brain. You know what I mean? Sports is good and fun and all that good stuff, but it's not as important as your brain. So.
The first article that you reported there, the concussion one, I wonder, that was dated 2015. So it's possible that that data was collected 2012, 2013. Was that before that concussions? Yeah, the little computer program that you have to do?
That's a good question. Honestly, I can't have that one answered, but
Yeah. Because I'm wondering, that statistic in that paper that so many of those players were going back in a week, it doesn't matter what you say, you can't fake physiology. So now that they're doing those computer tests, it doesn't matter if they say they're okay, if they don't pass the test, they don't get to play.
No,
right?
definitely. And if you're not passing like one section or like something that doesn't look normal, you're not going to play.
Yeah.
They won't let you anymore.
No, so I'm wondering whether they collected that data before that new kind of step was taken, because that seems an awful lot of players to be back playing within a week.
Yeah.
I mean, especially if they were football players, those concussions weren't that light.
No. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I've seen, like, our boys get hit, being at the football games when I'm on the sidelines, and they're like, oh. And they're like wobbling, like, oh, like, I just got hit, but they're not going to say anything. They're going to go to the other side of the sideline and just figure it out, or, I don't know. I've seen it, though, like, this year. So,
Yeah.
sorry, Jesse, do we just sit you down?
No, you're good.
We
Well
good?
done. Okay. All right, do we need a loo break? Do we want to keep going? I have a feeling I can't count, and I totally miscounted the number of papers. Does anybody else need more papers, or is it just me?
I will need one more, please.
If we're doing an evaluation, Jesse's on the board.
Oh, if we're doing Jesse, then yeah.
We've got Jesse, and then we've got Blake.
No.
Okay, let me go run it. I thought I counted it all out correctly, but apparently that's not a good point.
The other day when I was on the phone, I have such a monotone voice. I was like, oh, I didn't even know. Yeah.
Okay, you are ready to go.
All right, let's do this. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay. So hello, my name's Jesse. A little bit about myself. From Los Angeles, California. Currently here right now. Was previously a graduate assistant with the football team there at Eastern, and now I'm on my way to a different path, I guess. So today I'll be presenting a bit on relative age effects in sports, or just the relative age effects. You can go on to the next slide.
Sorry. Can't see what I'm doing.
Next is the top one.
Top one? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Yep. So my purpose statement was to identify whether there was a correlation or a correlation exists between relative age effects and skill level identified by a draft pick in the National Football League Hall of Fame. My independent variable was skill level, and it was a draft pick, and my dependent variable was the relative age effect. Next slide.
Okay.
So a bit to get an understanding of what the relative age effect is, or what is the relative age effect, is symmetry in the birth age distribution, favoring players that are born earlier in the selection year, and it kind of discriminates against participants that are born later in the year. So for example, if a certain sport were to divide its participants in quarters, which most sports do, so for example, if quarter one was January 1st to March 31st, quarter two April 1st to June 30th, essentially the first of the month to the end of the month every 3 months. If a child were to be born on January 1st, they'd be on the same team as someone who was born on December 31st, and obviously there's that 12-month advantage that the kid born on January 1st would have over to the participant born in December 31st. So kind of an idea of what the relative age effect is based on their age grouping. Next slide.
Oh, hold on. I went the wrong way. There we go.
All right, so the first, like the first article was a proposed theoretical model to explain the age in sport. So essentially, it's kind of giving a way to see if we keep going and examining relative age. And the purpose of that was to initiate a discussion about theoretical frameworks of AREs, or relative age effects, that researchers can use to test and develop hypotheses regarding AREs. It was a theory-oriented article, and it was just trying to find an explanation of why there's AREs in sport. So as a result, parents were found to influence AREs through what's called the Matthew effect. Coaches influence AREs through what's known as the Pygmalion effect, and athletes influence AREs through the Galileo effect. And I'll give you a bit more on that on the next slide. But essentially, in conclusion, what was found was that these social agents, being parents, coaches, and athletes, they have a stronger influence than certain motor abilities, or physical attributes such as size, maturity, and cognitive ability on ARE. So, next one. Sorry.
Okay.
Can you see the picture?
Yeah.
Awesome. So, around the perimeter is like the initial parental influence, known as the Matthew effect. ARE increases as parents continue to enroll the relatively older children more frequently than younger children in sport, and it provides coaches a talent pool of more skilled athletes, quote unquote, which is directly influenced by parent enrollment. And then the internal aspects, they kind of represent an amplification and perpetuation of ARE, and relate to this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy concept that envelops Pygmalion and the Galileo effect, essentially like kind of like, if I know I can do it, I'm going to go ahead and do it type of mentality. And the expectations that are placed onto the athlete, either by the parent or the coach, the athlete go ahead and adopt a behavior that's in accordance with these set expectations. So, for example, if a coach goes up to you and say, hey, you're going to go for 5,000 yards this season, and oh yeah, I'm definitely going to go for 5,000 yards this season, and it kind of goes back and forth like that. So, just a cool little diagram to show the relationship between each. And so, this first article, then got me thinking, and kind of caught my eye with the second article right here. If you can go ahead and switch to the next slide.
Got it.
For us of aging sport and developmental systems model. Again, the last article was essentially trying to provide a theoretical foundation from which researchers can further understand or explain ARE in sport, whereas this one kind of delves a bit deeper. And the primary aim, or two aims for this article, first was to create a heuristic model for the age phenomena that was supported through existing evidence, right? And just can be tested over and over again empirically. The second aim was to guide research that provides more of an insight to the causation of ARE in order to produce more testable multivariate models. Again, there's another theory-oriented article, like the other one. There weren't any participants that were really tested. It was trying to find a framework or model to go ahead and employ in order to find the causation of ARE in sport. So, as a result, there were three interacting constraints that they found that were responsible for optimal coordination and execution and or control of an action or an activity. First was an individual constraint. And individual constraints are kind of like height, weight, and your VO2 max on the oxygen that you go ahead and consume at maximum, and then the timing of the tempo of your maturation. The second was task and task constraints. Are like kind of like the demands of the sport, whether or not in order to be successful, you have to have qualities like strength, speed, agility, and flexibility. And then lastly, it's kind of self-explanatory is the environment. Just kind of refers to like the broad social constraints that affect development. Includes like your physical environment, your socio-cultural environment, policies, or rules that are engaged in within the sport itself. And so, with that, I can go ahead and change to the next slide. So in conclusion, and then I'm kind of going to go more into this conclusion with the next slide. But basically what was found that there needs to be further work to be able to be really precise as to finding the reason or the causation why these different constraints cause AREs in sport. And what was proposed is utilizing Newell's framework of interacting constraints and the basic tenets of the developmental systems theory to provide that platform in order to get more of an understanding through AREs in sport. And so essentially what was found, what was developed was kind of similar to what we've seen in the last diagram. Can you turn to the next slide?
Okay.
Awesome. So again, in thinking about the social constraints, individual, task, and environment, right? These are all going to account for the relative age and relative age effect. So at the very top, figure A is an example of a constraint profile of interactive team sports, such as Canadian hockey. Figure B is a constraint profile that kind of more reflects like an artistic sport, such as gymnastics. And it also shows like an unknown constraint feature to show that ARE can acknowledge like what is unknown, something that happens at random. And figure C kind of highlights the scenario where individual constraints are greater than task and environment constraints, but also demonstrates the size and area of the relative age and the relative age effect pi. It can kind of be modified to demonstrate the effect size, whether it's a bigger circle, the larger effect size, a smaller circle would be a smaller effect size, of course. And so this model essentially allows to test the impact of modifications to constraint characteristics and manipulation that has the potential to mediate the relationships between constraints.
Okay.
All right. So why this topic initially, and especially with my football background and now background in recruiting and kind of like talent identification, I mean, the more data points you have to gather on an athlete, the better. And what kind of got me intrigued with this topic was the fact that like there's a correlation between birth rate the first time and soccer players over there in Europe. Like most of the kids that were being picked up by professional teams were being, and these were like top-notch athletes who were born in the first quarter, like in the first 3 months of their enrollment period throughout those youth programs. And I kind of figured like, well, man, is there a correlation between that and guys that play in the NFL, specifically those who made it to the Hall of Fame? And if so, I mean, as a GM or the person who's charged with recruiting and acquiring talent, like any data point that you can go ahead and get, why not? You know what I mean? So if there is a correlation between that, and I can measure that, and in terms of being successful in sport, specifically in football, then definitely. But now it's kind of trickled down to where you're seeing more issues arise because of this relative age effect, or in other words, and because of the way in which we're grouping our youth in sports, especially with the growing in popularity. A lot of times you're just the day in which you're born, you're going to go ahead and get groups of kids that are born around the same time as that. So it kind of brings up issues in terms of, the way in which we're setting up our youth programs. So that kind of got me more into looking at a system in which we can really see, like, well, are these effects really happening, or is it a result of something else? So, yeah. Next slide.
Okay.
So, is it something I know a lot about, or something that I want to know about? I mean, initially I didn't know much about it. Again, it kind of just caught my eye, noticing how many kids are being picked up over there in Europe because of their birth date, as opposed to, over here in the States, the manner in which we go ahead and initiate our youth sports, and in respect to, their performance pathway of the ladder from youth sports to high school to collegiate onward. And then next slide. And in terms of what I'm looking forward to now, now I kind of would like to step away from my initial purpose statement and would like to see more research be done in regards to like a longitudinal study being employed to follow like an athlete throughout the performance pathway, or various athletes throughout the performance pathway, to really see what's going on and to see if we can get a better grasp on the foundation of these relative age effects. Because most of the time they're negative. A lot of times you'll see kids that are just dropping out of sports because there's that one dude on the team that's just way bigger than I am, way faster than I am, and kind of gives you that, kind of brings up the idea of Little Giants. I don't know if you guys seen that movie, The Little Giants, with that one huge running back that just tramples over everybody. I know all of that one kid that just didn't want to play it. I've seen someone do it 3 times my size. So, and not only that, again, the manner in which we're grouping our kids is something that we can do in regards to that. And one solution I found was what's called like bio-banding. In other words, grouping kids based off their physical assets, the skills, and the skills required, as opposed to very good things. So it'd be nice to see a longitudinal study to follow someone, to follow an individual, or a group of individuals throughout the performance pathway to see whether or not ARH truly has an effect on the performance in sport. Any questions?
Okay, hold on, I'm gonna run around the room with my microphone. Yeah.
All right, Jesse, you mentioned it in soccer players, but in football players, did you see a correlation between what quarter, produced better athletes or more talented players?
So there was a study done, and they had gathered athletes from 1990 to 2001, if I can remember correctly, but essentially there was no significant showing in ARE in football, but they also said that the framework in which they were utilizing didn't account for the complexity, such as like the constraints that I mentioned, task, individual, and environmental constraints. And so they just went ahead and confirmed that there needs to be more research done in regards to that, because it didn't account for those complexities, but there was no significant showing that ARE was present in football at that time.
When you were talking about the quartiles, where they're like from January to March, the age
Yeah.
differences and stuff, so would you
Yeah.
suggest the last quartiles or, to go and play with the next year? Or is that what you meant when you say December to January 1st?
Yeah, each selection dates are varied throughout the sport, and so, like the December kids, the selection date dates start in December and it ends in January, and so, when we could go ahead and combat that, I guess, we have to just, focus on their fine motor abilities as opposed to relying on the date when they were born.
Hey Jesse, I had a buddy in middle school that completed his 7th grade year, and he moved to Arizona, and he repeated his 7th grade year, so he could get an extra year in high school sports. I just wondered what you think about that situation.
I mean, now, you see a lot of kids doing that nowadays, period. I mean, and again, it kind of shows you that, for one, I mean, the parents have the option to say, no, I want my child to go ahead and move forward and where they're supposed to be moving in, but you see a lot of athletes, especially like 5-star athletes, and I've seen it here in California, that parents will opt to go ahead and hold their child back purposefully for that exact same reason, so their child can benefit off the effects of being physically more mature than the other athletes on the field. And I think, I mean, it kind of ties into like gamesmanship and sportsmanship. It's not against the rules, but at the same time, it's kind of frowned upon. Like, hey, man, like, why are you a 19-year-old playing with 17-year-old dudes? You know, go to college already. But then again, it's kind of a smart move because these kids are getting these 5-star rankings and they're getting offered these D1 scholarships, and coaches don't really care about that at the next level. It's whether or not is he eligible to play, can I get him on my team and perform, it doesn't matter how old you are, and if you have this year's of eligibility, you know. So it kind of goes on, it kind of depends on what you're going to do. You know, from a coach's perspective, that's great. I'm going to get a kid who's going to be more developed. And also from a player standpoint, it's kind of unfair to have to play with someone who should be in a different league.
Sounds good. Thanks, man. Here's Chris.
My question I was going to ask you really is like, as far as age goes, would you rather recruit a JUCO guy who is more developed, or go after a freshman and develop him yourself?
It depends really, because a lot of times, like coaches will mistake like physical maturity for skill, and so and that's like a whole other aspect, especially with the age effect that most researchers don't take into account for. And so and most recruiters kind of get this mistaken score because they see that kid who's just they pass the eye test, so to speak. You know what I mean? So personally, I mean, it just depends on what you want to do, what type of athlete you're trying to instill in your program, in your system, and whether or not they have the ability to perform too. And not only that, I mean, just because they're in JUCO doesn't mean they're as developed as a high school kid, you know, depending on the coaching that they receive as well, you know what I mean? So it's really dependent on the situation. But typically, I mean, as you may know, like, coming out of JUCO, from a mental standpoint, you know, in comparison to a high school kid, I'll have the advantage of that. And not only that, I mean, having to see the other physical attributes that are required to perform, as opposed to playing in high school. So, I guess JUCO has a slight advantage in that from a cognitive standpoint.
All right, sounds good.
Can I ask a silly question? Can I ask a silly question?
Sure.
So if they're playing in JUCO and then they come to a regular college, do they still get their 4 years in their regular college, or do they lose however many years they played at the junior college?
Yeah. They lose however many seasons they played at their junior college. But they can play for 6 seasons and still have 3 years of eligibility left.
Gotcha.
But like seldom would you ever find someone transfer out of the JUCO and have more than 3 years. If you do, then he's probably going to get picked up at regular school. So.
Right, okay. Okie dokie. Blake is ready to finish us off.
All right, Jesse, can you hear me?
Yep, yep.
All right. My name is Blake Draper. A little bit about me is I'm from Houston, Texas originally. Moved all over the place though. Right now I'm currently in Lubbock. I completed my undergrad at University of Colorado Springs, where I played basketball for 4 years. My claim to fame with that is my teammate then is Derek White, who now plays for the San Antonio Spurs. So we were teammates, roommates, best friends. So I mean, he gets me into a lot of games for free. My degree there was exercise and sports science, so everything with the biomechanics, kinesiology aspects. So now I decided to go with sports administration route in case, eventually in the future I want to be an athletic director, but the goal right now is to be a college basketball coach, and that's what I do right now at Local Christian University. All right, so why did I choose this topic? Multiple reasons. Can yoga reduce the risk of injury from falls in population age range 65 to 85 years old? Why did I choose this topic? Multiple reasons, but I've done yoga for 8 years now, since I was a junior in high school, and I've always found it helped me with injuries. I mean, I've never had any injury playing baseball, basketball, football. Was a wide receiver in football, got hit plenty of times. Basketball, never rolled an ankle, never had knee injuries. Baseball, never rolled an ankle on a base, nothing, no hamstring injuries. And I always attribute it to yoga, which is ironic because I can't touch my toes still. Doesn't work out, but I never had an injury, so it's okay. The other aspect of it is last year, around this time in October last year, my dad fell and had a huge medical emergency. We didn't know how, why, or the cause of him falling, and he's approaching this age range. And so I figured if it helped me and helped with my balance in sports, I wonder if it could help him as he gets older, to one, with his balance, but two, psychologically too, just to be able to get back to the standpoint where he was, where he doesn't have to worry about anything. He just go through day-to-day life without worrying about falling again and hitting his head, and it next time be fatal. Prior knowledge experience, like I said, I've been doing this for 8 years now. Found yoga to be beneficial in reducing injury, but also stress relief. I mean, I do yoga every Sunday. That's my one day off in the gym, but I use it as active recovery. I make my athletes at Lubbock Christian do yoga twice a week for the injury prevention risk as well, as long with the stress reducing aspect. I mean, I was a college athlete, y'all are college athletes, y'all know how stressful college student athlete lifestyle can be with handling 15, 12 plus hours of semester on top of traveling, making sure you have everything in, maintaining eligibility if the season's not going how you want it to. But there's multiple reasons why I have them do it, and injury prevention and stress reducing is one of them. So the purpose of this study will be to test whether yoga reduces the risk of injury by increasing flexibility, range of motion, and balance in the population age range of 65 to 85 years old. Like I said, targeted population for that reason is my dad's approaching that age. It's particular why. The reason I'm testing flexibility, range of motion, and balance is, especially with balance, walking, can be sometimes a scary life thing for people in that range, because it can be one fall, a hip, a head, it could be, life-threatening to them. And so flexibility as well, reaching, bending, anything like that where it causes discomfort. Anything that can make quality of life better for this age range is to where they can live out the remainder of the years and not have to worry psychologically and physically about if the next fall is going to be potentially life-threatening. So the results I expect to see is that from bi-weekly yoga sessions, you're going to have increased flexibility, range of motion in those population age ranges, and then reduce the risk of falling by increasing one's balance and being able to catch themselves. Expect to see yoga used as an injury prevention measure, as the studies will show from the reduced risk of falling, that if they can not fall or prevent themselves from falling, It'll also help them reduce the risk of injury if they do fall on chance. There's other tests that are run through the studies, or supplementation as well, vitamin D and calcium for the increased bone strength. So if they do fall, it doesn't hurt their bones. As you get older, your bone density becomes less, and you're open to more risk of breaking bones. So seeing a supplementation with vitamin D and calcium will help reduce the risk of injury, and then balance, improving the unlikelihood that they will fall. I accidentally typed in Yoda, Y-O-G-D-A, and I got Yoda doing yoga, so I was like, I guess I might as well do it, put it in there. But so my independent variable is the participation in yoga, and my dependent variables I'm testing are the flexibility, range of motion, and balance, because that's what I'm going to know will help increase or reduce the risk of injury, but help increase those aspects. And I mean, I guess if it works for Yoda, however many years old he is, it should work for anybody. So the study that caught my attention the most with this, I tried memorizing, but I can't remember, so I gotta read it. Mixed methods evaluation of yoga as a fall prevention strategy for older people in India. So this one took people aged 65 and up, tested 60 people, 30 males, 30 females. All of my studies had, the participants had no previous experience with yoga. One thing is, my dad has no previous experience with yoga, so I want as similar as population as possible with it. The study caught my attention based on the variables tested, as it tested the balance and flexibility. Range of motion comes from a different study, but was a third key topic, but balance and range of motion, or flexibility, were my top two variables that I tested for. The citizens use no yoga experience. I have a table on the next slide that shows it. But standard deviation, performance and outcome measures for baselines. They did a baseline measure. 3 months later, they retested the measures to see what the differences were and the variables tested. And then the variables tested were sit and stand time, standing balance time, times 4-meter walk, and how many steps they took in that 4 meters, and then weight and blood pressure. So now I'm on to the table. You see this following along still, Jesse?
Yep,
All right.
okay.
All right, so the sit and stand time, the baseline, this was a mean average from the 60 participants, but was 15.9 seconds it took for them to sit and stand all the way at that age, from sitting on the floor to standing up versus being in the chair. It took them almost 16 seconds. Over the 3 months, it was reduced to 13.8, which is a huge time to reduce it by 2.1 seconds. Standing balance time, they did just standing in one place, testing the movement they had. If I remember correctly, a movement of 2 inches each direction. Every time they moved outside of 2 inches, the test was cut there. So they had to stand still straight for as long as they could, and that tested their balance. Not a significant result, but it increased 1 second that their balance maintained. The timed 4-meter walk, they were able to walk it at actually a little faster, about 0.3 of a second faster. That's about 1 step faster per time, per 1 stride faster. And then the number of steps, 0.4, and so it's over the average, it was about 1 per person. Shortfalls efficacy scale. International, so obviously it's in India, so it's international, not here, but shortfall there, so it's from a tested a range. This is, what is it? I forgot the, I think, not centimeters, but it's not meters, I forgot the, but basically the height they were at, what they felt was the risk, where, they feel more comfortable being. Weight, their weight was reduced, and their blood pressure was overall reduced as well, just for feeling more comfortable, not as stressed when walking in their balance. They felt more comfortable day-to-day life. The other contributing paper, the effects of yoga compared to the active and inactive controls on physical function, health-related quality of life in older adults, systematic review, made an analysis of randomized controlled trials. So this took range of motion, it took supplementation, it took balance, and it took yoga all into one, or it took studies from all, and combined them all, and compared it to clinical evaluation, so a rehab facility, or a facility that would train them, or versus going to yoga, and that was the baseline data. Everything was compared to the clinical evaluation. what it showed was, I couldn't fit the table on here for some reason, it wasn't letting me copy and paste and fit into the scale, because it was, I mean, it was 5 lines long, took almost a page and a half of the article. So I mean, it wouldn't fit on there, but here's the broken down per thing. So exercise versus visual. So this would also help with range of motion. Showed decrease the risk of fall by 36% over the usual care. So with range of motion, it helped them be able to squat better, bend the knees, sit and stand, and sit and reach were used for this, as well as flexibility. But increased 30%, or reduced the risk of fall by 36%. So they felt more balanced. They felt, you know, they can bend more and not worry to have their gravity or their equilibrium thrown off as much. Attending yoga increased their balance and flexibility and coordination by 51%, significantly, which lowers the risk of falls. I mean, as they're more balanced, your quality, I mean, you're psychologically not having to worry about it and think about it as much. I mean, my dad tells me all the time how he thinks so much now, day by day, like the little things he does just going up the stairs now. You know, just walking across the level ground, because he fell in the kitchen. It's not like he was going up the stairs or anything, it was just in the kitchen he fell. So he said worry is probably the biggest thing now, that he just has to, he can't live life the same anymore because of his balance is thrown off now, especially the more he thinks about it. So with improved coordination and balance, psychologically it improves you, but physically it improves it as well. Supplementation, vitamin D, calcium helps increase bone strength, especially as the older you get and your bones decrease in strength. This will help if you do fall, you're less likely to break the bone, or the severity of the injury will be reduced. And then visual assessment, visual just more hand-eye and depth perception. This test showed minimal increase, 33%, but you know, it helped improve their balance and the coordination and just feeling more aware of their surroundings and being around. Whereas now, you know, my dad says he has to look at the ground everywhere to make sure, you know, he's not walking anything or there's no tripping hazards. Now, with the visual assessment, they're more aware, whether it be using peripherals or just being more cognizant of what's around them. What I look forward to most after this is getting back home to this little girl. I had a debate whether, you know, well, I didn't have a debate, I got actually chewed out because my wife was like, why didn't I make the presentation? I was like, well, this one's nicer. But I shouldn't say that because my wife is pregnant, so I should give her a little, you know, slack. But what I really look forward to is, does increased balance, coordination, range of motion, flexibility, does that increase not only the physical aspects of people, but does it increase the psychological and the quality of life? With people who I've mentioned multiple times across this, like my dad, who are worried so much about falling and they don't go out as much, and their social life suffers because they don't want to go out, or just their quality of life suffers because they're bound to a couch because they know I'm safer on the couch than I am going out to a park or something. Is their quality of life improved? Is their injury risk reduced because of this? Does their socialization factors increase because now they're going to yoga classes with people their same age in the same predicaments who maybe have had previous injuries, previous falls, or who all are scared, or maybe just want to do it just to stay healthy? I mean, it can be a variety of reasons why, but I want to see, does that improve the quality of life? Does that increase socialization? Does it reduce the risk of injuries even more so? And if so, should it be used more than clinical evaluations or rehab facilities? And which one is a cheaper option, but two, a more interactive option, not one-on-one, but more a group of 10 people in a room. So that's all I have. So any questions from you all?
Can you like overdo like yoga? Like, do you need to take a break from it? Like,
so
can you do like something?
it's recommended you don't do it more than 3 times a week. 2 times is good enough. 3 times you're actually stretching your muscles to beyond to where there's no more they can actually stretch, and you might actually do damage. You open yourself to hyperextensions actually if you overstretch your muscles and you do yoga too much. So it should be used more about this sessions in there were 30-minute sessions, so an hour a week. So an hour a week is really the judgment or the time or the frame you should go with.
For this age group or?
For the studies that I did, it was 30 minutes. So, I mean, the way I make my guys do it is 2 30-minute sessions. We just have a yoga instructor come to our gym and we do 30 minutes real quick. And it's, I've never seen any study go more than 2 hours a week. And so I would say that's why yes, you could overdo it. And you don't want to open yourself to risk by hyperextending muscles or overstretching muscles or expressive or tearing your muscles unintentionally.
No matter the age, what do you personally feel is the biggest benefit of participating in yoga?
I think the flexibility and, it reduced risk of, I feel it reduced the risk of injury. Me, you could ask many people, I'm biased towards it. I also did studies that did college athletes that had college soccer players, and it showed to reduce their risk of injuries as well. And so I think the reduction in risk of injury is the biggest factor of why yoga is used and why it is across all age groups should be used.
The chart where it was showing like the decreases or like
Yeah.
increases and stuff, are you kind of doing something like that with your dad to like, or is he like totally on board about yoga after his injury and everything?
We haven't done any baseline. He hasn't started yoga yet, but he said he wants to. He said start of the new year he will actually do it. So I want to get a baseline with him. And this one is with, I had a college classmate who was actually from where I was from in Houston. She does yoga for 55 and older in that area. So I told her, hey, being real specific with my dad, I want to know this, this, and this. So day one, they're going to do a consultation with him, get his measures, and then we're going to test it. It won't be the exact same.
Yeah.
She hasn't told me what variables they're going to test, but I know flexibility is one. With the sit and reach, and then sit and stand from the ground is one. And I can't remember others she mentioned, but she said there's about 6 variables they're going to test that overall show us if it is actually true beneficial, if it's benefiting him, or if it's just there for something. Jesse, do you have any questions?
Yeah, you said you had implemented like yoga with your athletes, right?
Yes, I did.
Did you see or have you observed like any it affecting them from a cognitive standpoint?
I've seen them be able to be less stressed. I know, especially early on in the year prior to us doing this, there was more of a drag feeling of the season and the practices going on. But since we've been doing it now, we've been doing it since the end of September, beginning of October. Now their morale is up. They're not as they tell me they're not as stressed. They feel more under control with their academics. So I think as far as psyche and just their overall personalities and characteristics, it has improved. Their how they feel, and they're definitely in a better mood. And especially with issues that we've had in house already. It hasn't affected as many, and then especially with finals week for them as well. They all seemed under control, stressed. One of them even asked me, or a group of them asked me like, hey, we got finals this week, I know we're not doing yoga this week, can we still do it this week? Because they're like, I think it helps me come to peace of mind and clear my mind. And I think that's the biggest thing is what they've seen the difference in, is like it clears their mind when they're, stressed and have a very hectic lifestyle being student athletes.
For sure. Did you get any pushback when you first tried to implement it?
Pardon me, say it again?
Did you get any pushback from the athletes when you tried to first implement it?
No, they actually kind of thought it was kind of funny at first. They were like yoga. They were like, oh, like why would we do that? Like that has no benefits. Well, then, the head. Prior to knowing this, or prior to wanting to implement this, I didn't know the head coach actually does yoga on his own time. And so he was like, no, he's like, I actually think that'll be good. And so they thought it was silly at first. And the first couple times we did it, about the first 3 sessions, they didn't take it as serious. And then you slowly started seeing 2 or 3 taking it more serious. And now we're whatever it is, 10, 11 weeks into it, and now the whole team takes it serious. So it was not much that they had to push back of, oh, I'm not doing this. There was no defiancy. There was more of, you know, they were just thought it was silly to their, like, well, how is yoga going to help me be a better basketball player?
Gotcha.
And
More so lack of understanding,
yeah, and then one of the big things we preach, especially with our guys and during games, is balance. You know, helps us reduce the risk of turnovers. And so we found our players to be more on balance, especially our turnovers have decreased by about 5 a game over the last 4 games. And, you know, we're not traveling as much or anything like that. So I think balance-wise has helped them, but also, you know, overall it's helped them just stay clear of mind and there's no pushback at all.
yeah. Nice. Thank you.
All right.
Well done, all of you. Here we go, thank you for coming. Thanks. That was great. Jesse, I really appreciate your patience and hanging in there under these rather silly circumstances, so thank you very much. I think I have everybody's PowerPoint now because of emailing them to Jesse, so if I have a problem opening any of them, if you could just keep an eye on your Blackboard email, and if I can't open something, I'll let you know. But I think I should have everything there. And so, yeah, the ones from last week, if you can get me those, and Jesse, if you can get me, if you can put them all in one Word document, that's great, or
Yep.
however it works
If they're all one
out.
document.
Yeah, that would be super. And that's it, guys. We're done.
Wow.
We're done. The last 7 standing people out of 20. Well done. I'm very honored that some of you stuck it out. And hopefully you realize now that it was worth going through what we had to go through earlier in the semester to get to this point, right? It's a learning curve. It doesn't just happen overnight, and so you should give yourselves a big pat on the back for hanging in there. And I should have grades up Monday morning because we are leaving Monday lunchtime, and I won't be back to town until the 3rd of January. So have a great Christmas, happy holidays, New Year, however you're celebrating. Those of you that drove over today, make sure that you drive home safely. And yeah, it's been great working with you. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Dr. Wall.
Yeah, you all picked really cool topics. So Chris's was a little bit of a mind-blowing nightmare looking at his papers, but other than that, it was, yeah, there's some heavy maths in that stuff. So, all right, well, have a good evening. I will go and download the video to YouTube now, fingers crossed. So that should be there for the girls who were at a basketball game today, and for Jesse if he needs to look at anything. So, all right, thank you. Have a
Thank you,
good
Dr. Wall.
evening.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Talk to you soon.
Oh yeah, paperwork. Oh, thanks. You got everybody's. Yeah.